And now we come to the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is one of the strangest books of the Bible. What is it about? It's about holiness. And it's about, especially for us, it's a rather strange. It is about how God laid out the rules so that the Israelites could be holy and therefore they could worship and come into his presence.
The Old Testament isn't intended for anybody other than Israel. He fulfilled the Levitical law already. He is our sacrifice.
Much said about God's mercy, much said about his grace. There is a great emphasis on the fact that God forgives, that he empowers. Almost nothing is said about the law of God, about the judgment of God, about the heinousness of violating his law and the just consequences of such a violation. And so, in a sense, the gospel, which means the good news, is stripped of what is really good because people don't know what is really bad, which makes the good news such good news.
Welcome to Diggin Deeper, a simple Bible study where we dig deeper into the Word of God. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Billy Ray Parrish. For today's study, we continue in the book of Leviticus, Leviticus Chapter 14. This is the third book of the Torah and the Old Testament to provide instruction and laws to guide a sinful people. However, as we have witnessed through the first two books of the Bible, God redeemed humanity time and time again. And the same is still true today, but it requires a relationship with a holy God. Leviticus chapter 14 is made up of 57 verses beginning with verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall go forth out of the camp. And the priest shall look, and, behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper, then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds alive and clean, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop, and the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it, and the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them, and the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water, and he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the open field. And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, and shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, that he may be clean. And after that he shall come into the camp, and shall tarry abroad out of his tent 7 days. But it shall be on the 7th day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard and his eyebrows, even all his hair he shall shave off. And he shall wash his clothes, also he shall wash his flesh in water, and he shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 he lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, and 3/10 deals of fine flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil. And the priest that mocketh him clean shall present the man that is to be made clean, and those things before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall take 1 he lamb, and offer him for a trespass offering, and the log of oil, and wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall slay the lamb in the place where he shall kill the sin offering, and the burnt offering in the holy place. For as the sin offering is the priest's, so is the trespass offering. It is most holy, and the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand. and upon the great toe of his right foot, and the priest shall take some of the log of oil, and pour it into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle of the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord, and of the rest of the oil that is in his hand shall the priest put upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the blood of the trespass offering, and the remnant of the oil that is in the priest's hand. He shall pour upon the head of him that is to be cleansed. And the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord. And the priest shall offer the sin offering, and make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed from his uncleanness. And afterward he shall kill the burnt offering, and the priest shall offer the burnt offering and the meat offering upon the altar, and the priest shall make an atonement for him, and he shall be clean. And if he be poor, and cannot get so much, then he shall take 1 lamb for a trespass offering to be waved, to make an atonement for him, and 1/10 deal of fine flour mingled with oil for a meat offering, and a log of oil and 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to get. And the one shall be a sin offering, and the other a burnt offering. And he shall bring them on the 8th day for his cleansing unto the priest, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord, and he shall kill the lamb of the trespass offering, and the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, and the priest shall pour of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before the Lord, and the priest shall put of the oil that is in his hand upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the place of the blood of the trespass offering, and the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, to make an atonement for him before the Lord. And he shall offer the one of the turtle doves, or of the young pigeons, such as he can get, even such as he is able to get, the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering, with the meat offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of him in whom is the plague of leprosy, whose hand is not able to get that which pertaineth to his cleansing. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When ye be come into the land of Canaan, which I give to you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession, and he that owneth the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, It seemeth to me there is as it were a plague in the house. Then the priest shall command that they empty the house, before the priest go into it to see the plague, that all that is in the house be not made unclean. And afterward the priest shall go in to see the house, and he shall look on the plague, and, behold, if the plague be in the walls of the house with hollow strakes, greenish, or reddish, which in sight are lower than the wall, then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house, and shut up the house 7 days, and the priest shall come again the 7th day, and shall look, and, behold, if the plague be spread in the walls of the house, then the priest shall command that they take away the stones in which the plague is, and they shall cast them into an unclean place without the city, and he shall cause the house to be scraped within round about, and they shall pour out the dust that they scrape off without the city into an unclean place, and They shall take other stones, and put them in the place of those stones. And he shall take other mortar, and shall plaister the house. And if the plague come again, and break out in the house, after that he hath taken away the stones, and after he hath scraped the house, and after it is plaistered, then the priest shall come, and look, and, behold, if the plague be spread in the house, it is a fretting leprosy in the house, it is unclean. And he shall break down the house, the stones of it, and the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house. And he shall carry them forth out of the city into an unclean place. Moreover, he that goeth into the house, all the while that it is shut up, shall be unclean until the even. And he that leeth in the house shall wash his clothes. And he that eateth in the house shall wash his clothes. And if the priest shall come in, and look upon it, and, behold, the plague hath not spread in the house, after the house was plaistered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. And he shall take to cleanse the house 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop, and he shall kill the one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water, and he shall take the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the scarlet, and the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird, and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times, and he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with the running water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop, and with the scarlet, but he shall let go the living bird out of the city, into the open fields, and make an atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law for all manner of plague of leprosy, and scall, and for the leprosy of a garment, and of a house, and for a rising, and for a scab, and for a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean. And when it is clean, this is the law of leprosy. Leviticus Chapter 14 verse 1 begins the section detailing the ritual for cleansing someone who has been healed of the skin disease, leprosy. The verse starts with God instructing Moses to speak to the priests about the ritual for someone who has been declared clean after having leprosy. Verse 2 outlines the ritual for cleansing someone who has been afflicted with a skin disease, leprosy. Here, the specific regulations and procedures are outlined that must be followed when a person is declared healed from this condition and is brought to the priest for purification. Ellicott's commentary for English readers explains of, "This shall be the law of the leper, that is, the manner in which an Israelite cured of his leprosy shall be purified and restored to the communion of the sanctuary on the day when he is pronounced clean. He shall be brought unto the priest, he is to be conducted from his place of seclusion." See Leviticus Chapter 13 verse 46, to an appointed place on the borders of the camp. It was this coming to the priest to which Christ referred when he said to the leper whom he had healed, "Go, show thyself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded." Matthew Chapter 8 verse 4. Verse 3, the priest is instructed to go out of the camp to the leper to see whether the leprosy has healed. This action is significant as it shows the priest's role in verifying the healing and ensuring the leper can be restored to the community. The priest did not contract any ceremonial uncleanness by coming near the leper, unlike other individuals, which was merciful to the lepers and ensured they had access to religious guidance during their affliction. Verse 4 explains the priest orders that 2 live clean birds, cedar with scarlet yarn, and hyssop be brought for the person to be cleansed. The purpose of these rituals is not just ceremonial cleanliness, but also to reinforce the concept that through sacrificial acts and obedience to God's commands, one can be cleansed from both physical and spiritual impurities. Verse 5 describes the procedure for a cleansed leper to bring offerings and mentions that the priest is to take one male lamb and offer it as a trespass offering. The priest is instructed to have one of the 2 clean birds killed over an earthen vessel containing running water, preparing the blood and water for the cleansing ritual of a leper. Verse 6 continues explaining the priest is instructed to take a live bird, and cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop, and dip them in the blood of a slain bird, symbolizing the cleansing and purification of a person afflicted with leprosy, both physically and spiritually. Verse 7, the priest is instructed to sprinkle the person to be cleansed from leprosy with the blood of the dead bird 7 times, then pronounce them clean, and release the live bird, symbolizing a complete cleansing and restoration to community. Verse 8 outlines the final steps in the ritual cleansing of a person afflicted with leprosy, signifying a return to wholeness and community. And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, and shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, that he may be clean. And after that he shall come into the camp, and shall tarry abroad out of his tent 7 days. Ellicott's commentary for English readers points out of shall wash his clothes. This was done not to disinfect them, for leprosy, as we have seen, was not contagious, but as an act of purification, which was performed after every kind of defilement. See Leviticus chapter 6 verse 20, Leviticus chapter 11 verse 25, etc. And shave off all his hair. The razor had to pass over the whole of his body, even his secret parts. A similar process was undertaken at the consecration of the Levites. Compare Numbers chapter 8 verse 7. And shall tarry abroad out of his tent, but though permitted to return to the camp, yet he had to live the first week out of his own house. This the authorities during the Second Temple rightly regarded as an euphemism for seclusion from connubial intercourse during the first 7 days, in order that he might not contract impurity. See Leviticus chapter 15 verse 10. And thus interrupt the period of holy preparation. Hence the ancient Chaldee version of the so-called Jonathan translates it, he shall sit without the tent of the house of his habitation, and shall not come near to the side of his wife 7 days. With this ended the first stage of purification, which restored the convalescent to his social or civil privileges, but not to the sanctuary. Benson commentary adds, all his hair partly to discover his perfect soundness, partly to preserve him from a relapse through any relics of it which might remain in his hair or in his clothes, out of his tent, out of his former habitation, in some separate place, lest some of his leprosy, yet lurking in him, should break forth to the infection of his family. Verse 9 describes the final steps in the ritual cleansing of a leper who has been declared clean by the priest. Further, on the 7th day, the cleansed individual must shave off all their hair, including their head, beard, eyebrows, and the rest of their hair. They must then wash their clothes and bathe themselves with water, after which they will be considered clean. Verse 10 describes the sacrifices a person who has been cleansed from leprosy must offer to God 8 days after being pronounced clean. According to the passage, the cleansed individual is to bring 2 male lambs without blemish, 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, and 1 log of oil to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Verse 11 instructs that after a leper is declared clean, the priest shall present the person for a ritual offering, along with the offerings, before the Lord at the entrance of the tabernacle, signifying their restoration to the community. Verse 12 describes the ritual for cleansing a leper after they have been deemed healed, involving the offering of a trespass offering, a lamb, and the use of oil, symbolizing atonement and restoration to the community. The ritual includes trespass offering lamb, the priest would take a male lamb and offer it as a trespass offering, a sacrifice to atone for the leper's past uncleanness. Oil. The priest would also take a log of oil, a specific quantity, and present it along with the lamb. Waving. The priest would wave the lamb and the oil before the Lord, a symbolic act of presenting the offering to God. Verse 13 explains what is to be done during the ritual. And the guilt offering. For instance, the priest is to slaughter the lamb in the sanctuary area where the sin offering and the burnt offering are slaughtered, and in the same place where sin and burnt offerings are slaughtered, as the guilt offering, like the sin offering, belongs to the priest and is considered most holy. Verse 14 instructs the priest to take some of the blood of the guilt offering and apply it to the lobe of the right ear, thumb of the right hand, and big toe of the right foot of the person being cleansed from a skin disease. Verse 15 describes a ritual where the priest takes some of the oil and pours it into the palm of his left hand. The priest then uses this oil to perform specific actions that symbolize purification and restoration to the community. Next, as described in verse 16, the priest takes some oil in his left hand and then dips his right forefinger into it, sprinkling the oil 7 times before the Lord. This part of the ritual highlights the practical steps in the purification process, which serve not only a hygienic purpose, but also symbolize a deeper spiritual renewal. Verse 17 instructs the priest to apply some of the oil remaining in his palm to the lobe of the right ear, the thumb of the right hand, and the big toe of the right foot of the person being cleansed, on top of the blood of the guilt offering. Verse 18, the priest, after the cleansing rituals, is instructed to apply the remaining oil from his hand to the head of the person being cleansed, thereby making atonement for them before the Lord. Verses 19 and 20 are instructions to offer a sin offering and make atonement for the person to be cleansed from their uncleanness, after which they are to slaughter the burnt offering. Verse 20 mentions the guilt offering, which consists of 1 lamb as a guilt offering, and 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering. The priest is to present these offerings to the Lord, and the guilt offering is to be offered in addition to the purification offering, as a means of atonement for the person's sin. Note the differences. Burnt offering represents the complete dedication and sacrifice of the leper to God, symbolizing the cleansing from sin and restoration to a holy state. The grain offering or meat offering represents the leper's offering of gratitude and devotion to God, further signifying their restored relationship with Him. Verses 21 and 22 illustrate that cleansing was not just for those with assets but for all people. For example, the verses outline a reduced offering for a poor person cleansed of leprosy, specifying a single male lamb, 1/10 of an ephah of flour mixed with oil, and a log of oil, instead of the more substantial offerings required of those who could afford them, and allows a person to bring 2 doves, or 2 young pigeons if they cannot afford the more expensive offerings, such as a lamb. According to verse 23, on the 8th day after the initial cleansing rituals, the priest is to bring the person for their final purification ceremony at the entrance to the tent of meeting before the Lord. Verse 24, the priest takes a lamb for the guilt offering and a log of oil, and offers them as a wave offering before the Lord. The lamb and oil are weighed before the Lord as a symbol of the person's restored relationship with God and their community. Verse 25 provides specific instructions on what to do with the lamb and its blood. For example, the priest is to slaughter the lamb for the guilt offering and take some of its blood and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed. on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot. And then, as instructed in verse 26, pour some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand. Verse 27 tells the priest to use his right forefinger to sprinkle some of the oil from his palm 7 times before the Lord. Verse 28 instructs the priest to apply some of the oil from his palm to the same places where the blood of the guilt offering was applied: the lobe of the right ear, the thumb of the right hand, and the big toe of the right foot of the one being cleansed, symbolizing a renewed commitment to worship and service. Verse 29 emphasizes the importance of atonement and renewal through sacrificial offerings. The priest would pour oil on the cleansed individual's head as a symbol of communal restoration and God's mercy, allowing the individual to re-enter a covenant relationship with God and the community. This ritual underscores the themes of sin, cleansing, and atonement, highlighting the ongoing need for holiness in the lives of believers today. Verse 30 states if a person is unable to afford the usual offerings, lambs, they can instead offer turtle doves or young pigeons for a sin offering, and a burnt offering, along with a grain offering. In other words, if a person cannot afford the usual offerings, 2 lambs, one for a sin offering and one for a burnt offering, along with a grain offering, they can instead offer turtle doves or young pigeons. Verses 31 and 32 state that if a person cannot afford the regular offerings for cleansing, they can offer a sin offering and a burnt offering, along with a grain offering. And the priest will make atonement before the Lord on behalf of the one to be cleansed as these are the regulations for those who cannot afford the regular offerings for cleansing from leprosy, and instead can offer doves or pigeons. Verse 33, God speaks to Moses and Aaron. Ellicott's commentary for English readers explain of, and the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, whilst the law about the cleansing of restored lepers was addressed to Moses alone. See Leviticus Chapter 14 verse 1, the regulations about leprous houses, like those with regard to leprous garments and persons, are for the same reason delivered to Moses and Aaron conjointly. See Leviticus Chapter 13 verse 1. Verse 34 outlines the procedure for dealing with leprosy, likely referring to mold, mildew, or dry rot in a house, stating that when the Israelites enter Canaan, and God puts this plague in their houses, the owner should notify the priest. Notification: if the owner of the house notices a plague or spreading mold, they must inform the priest. Priestly examination: the priest will inspect the house to determine the extent of the plague, cleansing or destruction, depending on the severity. The priest might order the removal of affected stones, the destruction of the house, or a ritual cleansing. Verse 35 instructs the homeowner to inform the priest if they suspect a plague, likely referring to mildew or fungus in their house, initiating the process for examining and potentially cleansing the dwelling. The priest is then responsible for examining the house to determine the extent of the plague and to prescribe the necessary steps for cleansing or, if necessary, destruction. Verse 36 explains before a priest examines a house for leprosy, the priest must command the occupants to empty it, ensuring nothing inside becomes unclean if the house is found to be affected. If the house is found to be leprous, everything inside would also be considered unclean. So it's crucial to remove all possessions first. Verse 37 describes the priest's examination of a house for signs of a specific type of mildew-like growth, specifically hollow streaks, greenish or reddish, that appear deeper than the wall, indicating a potential leprosy in the walls. The specific signs mentioned are hollow streaks. These are depressions, or indentations in the wall, greenish or reddish, the color of the streaks. Deeper than the wall, the streaks appear to be beneath the surface of the wall. Verse 38 instructs that after the priest examines a house for leprosy and finds it affected, the priest should go out to the door and shut the house up for 7 days to observe any further changes. The reason for this was leprosy in a house was probably some sign of fungus, mildew, or dry rot. Verse 39 instructs that on the 7th day after a house is quarantined, the priest must return to inspect it. And if the plague likely referring to mildew or mold has spread, further action is required. Verses 40 and 41 are clear. If the mildew or mold had spread on its walls, the priest must order the removal of the contaminated stones and plaster, and they must be discarded in an unclean place outside the city. The stones and plaster are removed to prevent the spread of the plague, and to ensure the house is cleansed and safe for habitation. The priest shall command that the stones containing the plague be removed and replaced, and the house scraped clean, with the dust thrown outside the city. Verses 42, 43, and 44 instruct that if, after removing and replacing stones and plaster in a house with a plague like mildew or fungus, the plague returns, the house must be torn down, as it is deemed unclean and cannot be inhabited. If, after these initial steps, the plague mildew reappears and spreads, the priest must examine it. If the priest finds that the plague has spread, the house is declared unclean. According to verse 45, if there is still mold or mildew, the priest must order the house to be torn down, along with its stones, timbers, and mortar, and all the materials carried outside the city to an unclean place. Verse 46 states that anyone who enters a house that is shut up due to a plague like leprosy will be unclean until evening, emphasizing the importance of quarantine and ritual purity. Verse 47 states that anyone who lies down or eats in a house that has been found to be unclean due to mildew or fungus must wash their clothes, emphasizing the importance of ritual purity and cleanliness in the context of the Israelites' relationship with God. This verse emphasizes the importance of maintaining ritual purity after contact with something considered unclean. Washing clothes serves as a symbolic act of purification, signifying the removal of any potential defilement. Verse 48 states that if a priest inspects a house after it has been plastered, and the mold hasn't spread, the priest shall declare the house clean, signifying the illness is gone. Verse 49 describes the ritual for cleansing a house affected by mildew or mold, similar to the cleansing of a leper, involving the use of 2 birds, hyssop, cedar, and scarlet, to purify the dwelling and render it habitable. The cleansing ritual involved 2 birds. The priest would take 2 birds, one sacrificed, and the other released, mirroring the ritual for cleansing a leper. Hyssop, cedar, and scarlet. The priest would use hyssop to sprinkle the blood of the sacrificed bird on the walls of the house, along with cedar and scarlet, which were symbols of cleansing and purification. Purpose: this ritual was intended to purify the house from the uncleanness caused by the mold or mildew, making it safe and habitable again. Similar to leper cleansing, the ritual for cleansing a house was similar to the ritual for cleansing a leper, emphasizing the idea that both the human body and the dwelling place could be affected by uncleanness and required. Verse 50 states the priest should slaughter one of the 2 birds used in the cleansing ritual in an earthenware vessel over running water, as part of the process of purifying a house with leprosy. This is done over a fresh pot and with clean water. The ritual, including the slaughter of the bird, was meant to symbolize the cleansing and purification of the house, making it fit for habitation again. The use of water and the release of the bird could be interpreted as symbolic of the cleansing and release from impurity, respectively. Verse 51 instructs the priest to take cedar wood, hyssop, scarlet yarn, and a live bird, dip them in the blood of the dead bird and fresh water, and sprinkle the house 7 times as part of the ritual to purify a house affected by leprosy. Cedar wood, hyssop, scarlet yarn, and live bird, these items are symbolic tools used in the purification ritual. Blood of the dead bird and fresh water, these elements are used to create a cleansing solution. Sprinkling the house 7 times, this act symbolizes the complete cleansing and purification of the house from the impurity of leprosy. Verse 52 describes the ritual cleansing of a house affected by a plague, using the blood of a bird, running water, a live bird, cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet yarn to purify it. Verse 52 emphasizes the importance of cleanliness and holiness in the eyes of God, both physically and spiritually. Blood, the blood of the bird, a symbol of life and atonement, was used to cleanse the house. Water, the running water used in the ritual, represents the power of God to cleanse and purify. Live bird, the release of the live bird symbolizes forgiveness and freedom from the plague. Cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet yarn, these items, along with the blood and water, are symbols of cleansing and purification. Verse 53 instructs the priest to let the live bird go free over the open field, signifying the house's purification and atonement. After the ritual is complete, the priest is instructed to release the live bird into the open fields, signifying the house's purification and the completion of the atonement process. The release of the bird symbolizes the removal of the impurity from the house, allowing it to be cleansed and declared clean. Verse 54 serves as a concluding statement for the laws concerning leprosy, encompassing various forms of the disease, including those affecting people, clothing, and houses. This verse is the concluding formula to chapters 13 and 14, which detail the laws of leprosy and its purification, and provides detailed laws and procedures for dealing with all forms of leprosy, including skin diseases and scaly outbreaks. Verse 55 specifically addresses the ritual procedures for dealing with leprosy, or mold in clothing and houses. Verse 56 lists specific types of skin conditions: rising, scab, bright spot, that were considered leprosy. Outlining the types of conditions the laws of leprosy in Leviticus 13 and 14 were meant to cover. The instructions for healing such conditions serve as reminders for the Israelites of their communal and personal responsibilities regarding purity. Leviticus Chapter 14 verse 57 concludes the section chapters 13 and 14 that deals with various diseases and conditions, including skin diseases, mold, and mildew, which were categorized as leprosy. The laws are designed to distinguish between clean and unclean states, ensuring the health and well-being of the people of Israel. The entire ritual, including the offerings and the presentation, is a spiritual act directed toward God, emphasizing the importance of worship and purification. We have reached the end of our Bible study today for Leviticus chapter 14. I am excited to be in a new book of the Bible, and we have finished the first 14 chapters of Leviticus. I am thankful for each of you for continuing to tune into the program with me. We are beginning to put together an impressive list of programs. The first 2 books of the Bible have been really fun to learn and really deep, but there is so much more to come. There is no telling what the next studies will reveal, so join us next time for our Bible study. Here on Diggin Deeper, as we simply dig deeper into the Word of God. Before we go, if you liked what you just watched, like and share our content. It really helps us grow. And think about subscribing to our channel, which will help you keep up to date with all of our content. Once again, I am your host, Billy Ray Parrish, and until next time, thank you for joining us. Stay safe and God bless.